I'll call the meeting of April 21st to order. And first item, do we have approval of last week's minutes?
Approve minutes as submitted.
Moved.
Second.
Second?
Actually, there's one item that was noted incorrectly. There was a comment attributed to me that I believe was Mr. Langus's comment. If I can find them. Here it is. On page 2, item number 2, the April 7th meeting minutes were approved with amendments requested by Claire Olivers, but actually I think that was Jim Langus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I remember that.
Okay.
Thank you, Claire, and you're to be congratulated. I'm guessing you're one of the members that read the minutes from last week. But all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Let's see, any comments from the public today? You're invited to the mic.
7 South 2nd Avenue in the Lowell neighborhood of Everett. And I'm sorry that I missed last week's vote on districted elections, although I'm certain I would have made absolutely no difference at all in the issue had I been here. That and the question of climate change are the only two major ideas I bring to this, and I got from my previous comments and conversations I've had that climate change isn't going to find any more of a place on the charter than did districting. So I sort of accept that, but I urge you to consider that the City of Everett first began to hear about this issue really from John Lindstrom before me, and in 2005 I began to talk with him about energy and climate and ultimately about economics and ways that I'm sure most of you have never heard. But these are urgent issues. These are issues that aren't going to wait around. Climate change in particular, you have to understand where we are now on greenhouse gas emissions will affect 50 and 100 years down the road. What we have in the atmosphere now, if we wait another 10 or 15 years, we've added that much more, and for the record, we've been increasing globally our CO2 emissions almost every year for the past 10. It's a pressing issue, far more pressing than it feels to most people, especially those who watch Fox News and think it's not a real issue. It is. And I urge you to keep that in your mind as you work ahead. Thank you.
Jackie,
Yes.
do you have any language that we might consider?
On climate change,
Yes.
I could come up with some. So I could submit it next week?
Or, Jackie, a little later, we're going to be talking about public hearing dates. And of course, you've been attending the meeting, so you know we're having the discussion on schedule and all that. So you're welcome to either submit comments in writing for the record or testify at the public hearing. So,
Or both?
okay, or both. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Jackie.
Can I just?
Chris?
One point on that issue, 'cause I appreciate your comments, and one point I just wanted to make is one thing we did do this year on the comprehensive plan as part of the Planning Commission is include a new element that we haven't in the past. Paul Roberts gave a really compelling talk to the Planning Commission about climate change and the environment, and we included that element. So I appreciate your comments. I'd be interested to see what you're proposing, but I do want to put on the record that that's one addition I think that is being incorporated into the City of Everett planning process.
I appreciate that. May I comment briefly on that?
Sure.
I have a copy of that report. I think I got it in May of 2014. Maybe it was the first draft, I don't know. But the history with me is the city in 2006 started gathering emissions data. I believe it was Susie Oversby that started that. It ultimately resulted in a climate action plan, and I say plan because it wasn't a plan. It was a document in 2011. That continued until about 2013 when I began to ask when we were going to make this plan into an actual plan. Over a period of time, that may have influenced Councilmember Roberts to draft his proposal because I was being somewhat annoying about that issue. And that document, which was, my version is dated March or May of 2014, is now in the hands of Climate Solutions, which I won't know until it comes back what it consists of, but I expect it to be something that is still distinctly and uniquely a city city draft, and that it will not reach beyond the city to the community at large in any significant way. And that's something we have to do, which is why I continue asking the City Council for a Citizens Committee on global warming and such other issues that I think are important. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, we will move forward. You'll notice on the agenda, we've got a couple of things to discuss today. One is a review of a proposed schedule moving forward and see if we can all agree on how we're going to proceed ahead. Then Tim Benedict in the Attorney's Office prepared a format for our report, which I really appreciate Tim doing that. And that got us, I believe it's been sent around to everyone. And I'd like to have some discussion and back and forth on the format so we can begin to visualize what our final report to the council is going to look like. And then at that point, Bob and I conspired on a format for a table. You'll notice this document that you have in front of you, Charter Review Topics List as of April 20th. And what that is, and it ties into the format of the report, but this is our attempt to organize our thinking as a committee. Some things have been voted on, some things are left to discuss. As everyone knows, we need to provide a record of votes that we took, and in those cases where we've come up with comments we want to forward to the council, they don't require votes, but somehow we want to get those summarized. So by doing this, hopefully it'll help us all see the track that we're on and move us forward to our final report in late May. So I'd like some discussion on that. And as part of that, of course, there's topics that we have not yet discussed at length or taken votes on. And so we will then begin ticking down that topics list and begin to make decisions on those. If that all makes sense as an agenda for this evening, is there any other item that people would like to put on the agenda?
So can you, I wonder if I'm missing something, but can you clarify for me or somebody what this, I just lost it, you have it right there. The NPAC. Are we
Yeah.
going to talk about that, or?
We're going to talk about it briefly.
Okay.
Bob's going to talk, Bob Bolerjack's going to talk about it right before we get back into discussing the, starting to move through the topic. So yes, that will be discussed. And we'll talk about what the status of that letter is and what we're doing with it. So, having said that, let's talk about schedule, if that's okay. And with my tremendous memory, I want to just read what I had written before as far as a proposed schedule, and once I do that, then we can talk about whether that all makes sense. I would like to aim for a May 12th public hearing on a draft report, meaning that we would get through the topics list and take votes over the next 3 weeks. I had originally, as you all know, suggested that we have the hearing on May the 5th with votes taken afterwards, but I appreciate the committee last week noting that votes have been taken already on some issues and that the procedure should be followed as we go through the rest of the topics. So if we complete the topics list before the 5th, good for us. And it'll just mean that we'll take a break until a hearing on the 12th. So we may give ourselves a week off if we really have ticked through the list pretty well. And I might add, I had asked, the reason the date's important is I had asked Bob to determine what the notice procedure is for a public hearing and make sure that whatever advertising that needs to occur does occur for a May the 12th meeting. So it's important that we agree on that date. Then after May the 12th, we can discuss any majority votes, and we talked about the procedure for bringing issues back onto the table. And then at that point, I think we'll be ready to finalize the report for an adoption on either the 19th or 26th of May. And if it's the 19th, then we're done, and we move the report forward on to council. So that's the schedule that I throw out for discussion. Can we have some discussion on that and see if we're agreed on timing moving forward?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me, too.
Okay.
We've left a little bit of a buffer for both getting through the discussion, so we've got a little bit of buffer on 5.5 if we need it, and we also have a little bit of extra wiggle room on the tail end of 5.26 as well, in case we have additional discussion after the public hearing. So I think it's a good schedule.
Okay. And if we move through, then we'll enjoy even more of our Thursday nights for a while, and we won't have to meet. Tom, I assume that passes muster with you as our legal counsel. We're doing things as we should.
It's my understanding that you haven't always required the formality of a motion, second, and vote, and you operated by consensus. You've also not adopted Robert's rules, so from my point of view, that's an acceptable process.
Okay.
Obviously, a majority of the committee could change its mind, but that's for the future to tell.
Okay. So if no other comment, and I don't think we need a vote on that, but this will be you've got that look on your face like you think we should take a motion on it. Is there a motion to adopt the schedule moving forward? You better move.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay, seconded by Terry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's our timeline and that's our schedule. Now, as far as the report format, Tim prepared this. He's out of your office. Do you want to talk about it a little bit? And
I don't think there's a lot to say. Tim took what the committee had done in 2006, and kind of used that as a template, and then he followed some of the minutes that have occurred this year and tried to adapt it so it's consistent with what you're trying to do. But I think it's a pretty simple format.
Okay.
I think the distinguishing thing between this and 2006 is perhaps the more ballot format that Tim put in it, which I think was intentional to try to make it clear to the public and to the council exactly what it is we're trying to do. So,
Okay.
I don't know, Bob, any observations?
Yep, I agree with what you said.
There is, well, let's have discussion on format. What do people think about this? This is what our report will look like after we filled it all in as we move it forward to council. Claire?
I think it works quite well. You could decide to change, the order of the sections, but that's the only thing. I think it's got all the pieces you need.
I found it very easy to follow what we've discussed, what we decided to change, what was updated, just secretarial type thing. So it was simple.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Okay. One thing popped into my head over this past week, and I thought I'd bring it up for discussion. And I'm going to borrow on the discussion we had last week on districting, not to discuss the substance of the districting question, but by way of describing what this report might look like. I think a couple of weeks ago when we talked, we said, okay, if there's whatever the majority opinion is on a particular item, on a split vote, that I might ask a small group of folks to collaborate on coming up with the narrative or the for statement. But as far as the minority opinions, and I don't think she would mind me saying that she had tossed the question out about us getting together, and presumably that was Michael, me, and her, to work on the minority statement. And my thought was that my minority position on that particular issue might involve things other than the issues Megan or Michael might raise. And remember, we're talking to the city council here. We're telling them why we voted like we did, and then those that voted on the minority side of things are saying, well, here's why we thought that maybe that should have been approved. So what I'm thinking is, and maybe this applies to both majority and minority sections, but I'm thinking on the minority side, if we could establish a rule among the members that, look, if you lost the vote and you want to explain to council why, then, okay, go ahead and take a paragraph. And then using, again, the districting thing as an example, all right, in the minority report, here's Michael's paragraph, and here's Megan's paragraph, and here's Reed's paragraph. Because I just think it would take an inordinate amount of time for, in this case, 3 people, not to mention if there were 4 or 5, trying to get together and wordsmith a minority report when we all voted the way we did for other reasons. So, format-wise on the report, do you want to, on the majority side, do you want to try to get 1, 2, 3 folks together to do the narrative and say, here's why we're recommending like we are? And on the minority side, do you want that to be a collaborative effort, trying to come up with one statement or a couple of paragraphs, or a paragraph by each of the minority voters? How do you want to handle that? Because it goes to the question of, once we take our votes and we've used Tim's format and we begin to fill in the narratives, we might be looking to a couple of volunteers to sit down and write that majority narrative. So, Terry?
Oh, I was just going to say that it looks like the way that Tim put this together, that each charter change has a statement for and against. That would just be the way to put it on the ballot. So I don't think we'd want to do something more complicated than that. But I also think there's room to attach, appendices and put our minutes and maybe all the testimony we received and any kind of letters or anything or reports like Michael's report and Megan's report. Just add that all as background information under an appendices, but keep the recommendations really crisp by having just a statement for and against. That would be my suggestion.
I agree with that. Unless somebody wants to, like if Megan wants to write, or you or Michael want to write a bigger statement, then I think that's your prerogative. But
And that could be attached right in the back.
Yeah.
Go into an appendices,
Yeah.
and then we label them appropriately. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
my comment on the districting issue, and
Yeah. Why boil it down, just
Yeah.
stick it all in there.
Well, we have it all on
Yeah.
testimony, and we have it on video, too. I
Yeah.
mean, if it's
Right.
something that they were interested in, they could find out, that's probably a lot of work for them. But I think it would be easy to pull out the narratives. That's just my opinion.
so that, the format that Tim laid out here, it's got Part D, which is comments from individual committee members. So we'll leave minority reports to Part D, and we will format it in such a way that we'll categorize it by the issue. Then we'll leave it to each individual member who cares to contribute to Part D, whatever the topic, to go ahead and submit that information. Tom?
Yes, before we get carried away on format here. On actual ballot measures, the city prepares the ballot measure, and it prepares an explanatory statement, which essentially describes what this change or this ballot proposition is going to do.
Right.
But under the election laws for matters that then make it onto the ballot, for the purposes of the voter pamphlet, you have a for statement and an opposed statement. And under the election laws, those are supposed to be prepared independent of the municipality. Typically, the way the law is written, you find a for group or a proponent, they write a for statement, and you are duty-bound to try to find an opposed group, which then essentially volunteers to do the opposition or against statement for the purposes of the voter's pamphlet. So though you're welcome to write a report that has the charter change, the ballot language, and the explanatory statement, if you write it in this fashion, actually those statements for and statements against aren't going to be the statements for or statements against that are going to carry forward as these matters progress, should they progress through the council to become actual ballot propositions. So maybe that will influence how you want to put this together.
Yeah, you know, that's a great point, because this is a report to the council from this committee. If we hand in a report that has the ballot proposition and explanatory statement, people may misunderstand what that is. So maybe we need to label it differently. It might be committees,
How about majority, minority?
yeah, or committees' comments or whatever.
I mean, without those, you're really not giving the council your thoughts behind the vote. So I feel like you want to say
Yeah.
what was talked about, you know?
But we need to be clear, as Tom says, that this is not the proposed language on a ballot proposition, because as you said, that's a whole different deal. Once the council decides, yeah, okay, we'll put these two items on the ballot, then as you said, you go out and find people to write the statements, so. I think it might be a titling and labeling issue, so we'll work on that. Great point. Okay, anything else on the format of this report?
Could I make or ask a question about the changes and some of the language in 15.9, which is the gender references? Up above, it says the charter change, and it talks about the gender references and the Scrivener's errors and the hereofs and the thereofs and whatever. But down below for the proposition, it just basically says to eliminate out-of-date terminology such as blah, blah, blah. I think I would like to see gender references in there. I think that's a stronger statement, and I don't know if that's, I know we're not supposed to write this, but.
Well, the reason it appears this way, I think, is because that's the only change to the charter. The gender references and the Scrivener's errors were already, those corrections have already been made.
Thank you.
Because the clerk's office was already authorized
Right.
by what the Charter Review Committee 10 years
I gotcha.
ago did.
Okay, I
So-
just wondered if that would be confusing for other people to read that and then say why that isn't in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Because that gender reference,
That's
that
all
was
that's
one
changed. That was
where
on-
it wasn't just the committee 10 years ago, the voters
Yeah.
approved it.
true.
They already made the
It
change.
They've already
it
done
was
it.
just never done,
It was
yeah.
never done. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, now after, and, okay, let's talk about this. The format of this topics list. That all makes sense as we move forward. The one thing I would note is the way we did this. Okay, the last page, remaining topics for discussion. There's some that I believe we know, we said, okay, we're going to discuss these and we haven't done it yet. But then once we're done with all that, we can go ahead and add other stuff down here. So this will be our mechanism for taking all of the comments from the committee and getting them recorded. So we'll move through this thing, but you will have time, once we move through the list, to raise other issues and propose other changes to it, so.
I haven't had a chance to look at this read, but is this all the information that, are we comfortable that everything we've talked about that we wanted to table or to move to later is on here? Okay,
I've gone over my notes, the
Okay.
minutes, and
Thank
tried
you.
to put it all together here.
perfect. I just didn't have,
Yeah.
I didn't look at that, so, okay. It's an easier way to look at it and go through it, so.
One correction.
Mhm.
The last, well, next to last item on the list, I believe that that was actually tabled at a previous meeting, 14.2, payment of policy, so it would,
Okay, and we are going to move through
It'd have
this
to be
list here in
brought
just a
back
little
up.
bit, but bring it up when we move through the list.
I stupidly cannot because I did not vote in the majority. It was a stupid move on my part.
Let the record show. Okay, but let's make sure whatever it is gets discussed. I don't know if that's something that, well, I don't know. We'll talk about it when we
If
get there.
two other people want to discuss it, then we will.
If we didn't adopt Robert's Rules of Order, then rule maybe doesn't apply.
About majority re-raising an issue, bringing it off the table.
Yeah, I wanted to say, that wasn't in the minutes, the whole thing he said last week about how we would raise issues up, and I think it would be helpful if that was actually incorporated word for word, so we don't have any, misunderstandings at the end of this process.
Yep.
So I was hoping that that would be in the minutes, but maybe he could restate that, and we could include it this time, and decide that that is the process that we plan to use for bringing up any issues, just so it's not a protracted process. I was also going to say that 2.8.d, I believe, was addressed in 1510. That was the recommendation of staff to put it in there. We did approve that, so you don't have to do anything with 2D, 28D.
Okay, we're getting into the list, and we had one or two other items to talk about before we do that.
Oh, sorry.
So- No, that's okay. He tried it too, so we'll get there. The NAACP letter, Bob wanted to discuss that.
Some context. I got an email this week from Megan Dunn, who said that, pointed out that this letter existed, and she thought that it would be covered under the committee's request that staff look into any complaints regarding diversity that had been filed with the city. There may have been some misunderstanding on staff's part. We thought that we were looking for complaints that involved elections or voting, and there were none regarding that. So this was a request by the NAACP sent in March for information regarding diversity in, mostly in employment in the city. And so what you've got here in the packet is the letter from the NAACP along with a package of documents that are the city's responses to that. And what I would add to that is that Mayor Stephenson met with Dr. Green, the president of the Snohomish County branch of the NAACP, had a discussion about this. The mayor said that she seemed fine with this response. Dr. Green has also emailed me saying that they'll be making further requests for updated data, because some of this data is only through 2013. So that'll be an ongoing dialogue and looking for more documents and supplying those. But that's the context for this, was Megan requested that this be put into the record for the committee.
And what I told Megan when that was circulated around, that it was my view that because it was presented, it is entered into our record. As far as discussing it, we will have a public hearing on May the 12th, and people are okay to stand up at the mic and talk about the letter and all that. But in terms of any effect, when I read the letter, it seemed to me not directly related to the districting issue. It had more to do with, well, we all know, we read the letter, we know what it had to do with. But to the extent that somebody wants to vote, whoever voted in the majority on the districting question, one of the 11, I think it was, If they want to propose reopening the districting discussion for purposes of discussing this letter in that context, then per the rules that we've established, I think, whether formally or informally, majority vote to bring it back on the table. It's brought back on the table, discussion is held, and decision is made. So as it stands right now, this letter is in the record. And we'll just wait until May the 12th and see what happens as far as it being raised as an issue. Terry?
I may be missing something, but we did approve and recommend to the council and the mayor that there be a statement in the charter, supporting appointing officials, having the boards and commissions represent, and that's what it's, number 3 is the only one I see in here that says, they're wanting, diversity on commission and board representation. I feel like we've addressed that with the charter.
Right.
So I don't see anywhere in this that was something that, would have impacted other things. But that's, maybe I'm just not reading it correctly, but I feel like I'm glad that we did what we did.
Yeah,
so.
and in the table, which we are very soon going to be discussing, it's in there. Yeah, so you are correct, it is. Okay, so that's that issue, okay? And Bob, thanks for researching that issue when the letter came in. Okay, if there's no other discussion, I think we're ready to start ticking through the topics list. And, yeah, Jim?
Terry's question about memorializing in our minutes the process that you just said, you referred to as rules. And so I think that, Terry, would you repeat your interest in?
I didn't bring it up during the minutes because I'm kind of a nitpicky on minutes, just because I know they're the record, but there was a long discussion about, how we would take these preliminary votes, and then the final charter would be voted upon, and then we'd, if we wanted to untable something, that someone in the prevailing side could make the motion, and the majority vote would bring it back for discussion. And I just feel like we haven't adopted Robert's rules, we didn't vote on that process, and it wasn't memorialized in the minutes. And I think, I'm assuming that we all kind of agreed on that last week. So I just wanted to make sure it was either reflected today or retroactively, or somehow really that's what we're going to do.
Does, Tom?
I just want to clarify something. Again, if we're using Robert's rules, something being tabled is different from something that has actually been voted upon. On an item that is tabled, you're correct, archaically it's called a motion to take from the table, which puts it back on your agenda as a discussion item. That's a motion that can be made by anybody because the matter was simply tabled. There was not a substantive decision made. Any member of the committee can make a motion to return it to discussion. It does require a second, and it requires a majority vote. A matter that has been substantively voted upon, in order to return that, again, under Robert's rules, the appropriate motion is a motion for reconsideration. That can only be made by a party who voted on the prevailing side. However, the second can be by anybody under Robert's rules, and it is a majority vote to have reconsideration. At that point in time, if there's a majority vote, it's back to discussing the item like something that has been returned to discussion, and it would require a new motion, second, that sort of thing, to change the substantive outcome. And that would require, under your rules, under the resolution, 10 votes.
So my recollection was, while we don't want to adopt Robert Rules of Order in the formality, that we thought that process served our purpose, and I wondered if we could get him to provide that sort of written narrative to our minute taker so we could actually get it in the minutes. And I don't know if we need to vote, but I think that is a really appropriate way to do that. So I would move that, what he said.
I don't care what you said. I want to know, do you understand it? So.
I do.
Good, that's the important part.
Well, particularly if Tom will provide it in writing, then
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
minutes, it will be, we won't have to turn Lisa into an attorney.
So everyone understands the rule, right? Is there any question
Yes.
about that? Because we're about to adopt it, okay? All right, all those in favor of the rule as expressed or described by Mr. Grafstra, please raise your right hand. It appears to be unanimous, and I think there's, what, 11 of us?
No, are you voting against?
Oh,
I got my right hand up.
She was
I
just
was-
But
our
we're-
our education system's in trouble.
I was like this, and I thought,
Do we have 11? Okay. Okay.
oh, jeez.
So, let's now move through the topics list, and going to this formatted table that we have now, you know, and let's keep it somewhat, I'd like everyone to tick down through the proposals where votes have been taken, make sure there's no errors in how it was expressed. Do we all agree on that one section, starting with 1.5 and ending with new section 1510? Are we all comfortable that that was what we all voted on, from a wording standpoint? Jim?
Reed, at 5.2, what, did we take a vote on advisory board?
It was tabled.
Well, okay, here we go again with tabled. As I read that, and I think I can use my excuse that I wasn't here. As I read that, it was not tabled. It was a vote to remove it from consideration. In other words, no change.
Right, okay. That's what I thought.
We had a discussion as to what was required by law, and
Thank
then
you
we
for
kind of went
pointing that
through a
out.
few
I
other
didn't see
boards and just decided that we should leave it up to our council to determine at the time what was necessary, so we did
Okay.
remove it.
The part that was tabled is at the end is 5.2, and that was about whether employees should be barred from sitting on advisory boards in the department they work. That part is the part that's tabled. The rest of it was decided.
There is one extra word in there at the, 5.2, that last word carried, that doesn't need to be there. But that's a Scrivener sort of thing. Okay, so those are the votes that we,
It does need to be listed as carried, because there's another place where a motion was made and it wasn't even seconded or carried.
but see, the way this table is set up, the action was to remove from consideration, and the vote was 13-0,
Okay,
which carried the motion.
okay.
So it's just a word I don't think is necessary, but. Now, are there, just for the record, are there any other votes that this committee took that people do not see on that section of the table? Or are we good? Okay, I'm going to assume we're good.
2.5 has the same statement, motion to make no change carried.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe going forward, it would be helpful to add another column to this table to have the date that it was voted on for issues
Yeah.
going forward, just in case we need to go back and research the minutes of the vote.
Yes.
Could I ask you to run through the table and provide that column with the dates that we took the votes? Great, thank you. Okay, that next section is topics approved and implemented without a vote. And I think we've discussed that. That's the point Joel brought up. And that apparently has been taken care of. Then the next section is topics discussed and dismissed for want of a motion or second. Rather poetic. So I'm going to just ask, we'll just take a minute to tick, for each of you to tick down through that list and what we say on the right-hand column, and make sure we agree on that, that's where we are on those.
the gal who made that discuss, I thought she withdrew this comment. She had thought about it some more, the other attorney. Not Chris, but the other attorney. Yeah, I thought she had withdrawn this on reconsideration, so I think we should ask her.
Do other people have the same recollection? Jim, do you?
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
what Eric did.
Okay. So what do we do with that one? Does it not, if she?
Yeah, confirm with Erica, I'd say, and then if she agrees with that, then we can just
You just
leave it at no motion. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, so, Tom, do I understand that because no motion was taken on these, that if any member wants to raise it again, for whatever reason, that we don't go through the tabling or reconsideration process, because no motion was ever made?
Correct.
Right.
It's still an item that's out there on your agenda and your general charge under the resolution
Okay.
from the city council.
So if
Correct.
nobody wants to bring it up again, it'll go in our report to the city council as things we talked about, but no motion was ever made. But that doesn't restrict you from raising the issue again if you choose to. Yeah, Chris?
Do we want to add a comment section to this? I was just thinking, as you walk through it, if I'm a city council person looking at this, some of these issues are restricted, I think, by state law. And so it's a quick no motion because of that, not because we discussed it, no motion was made. So I think the local media and the newspaper issue, for example, and then if there was a comment that Erica wanted to provide. Does that make sense? In terms of-
As far as describing what we did, yeah, that does, and it could fit in the boxes there on the right-hand column.
Or maybe
No
just leave it in
motion,
there.
period, the committee felt this and that.
Yeah. I'm happy to go through it and suggest something. I don't mean to make a proposal and put the
Okay.
work on somebody else, but just in terms of clarification. You got it. Okay.
Yeah. No vote needed on that one.
Okay.
My only hesitancy is that if we have a discussion and all of a sudden no motion is made, now we're reporting on what no motion meant.
Yeah, and that's
but-
not my intent, but
Yeah.
if there was an outside factor, like it's
Yeah.
inconsistent with state law, I think it would
Yeah,
be
And
worth
there were
noting that.
several of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a shot at it
Okay.
and describing why, and of course, it'll come back
Absolutely.
around and we'll all look at it. Okay, yeah, thank you for that.
On item 5.2, it's my memory that we had discussed that. I had given my reasons
Which one was
why.
that? I didn't-
5.2, the advisory boards.
Oh, on the last,
Last page.
oh.
I was going to say, I think it might be more appropriately listed over on the topics discussed and dismissed. We were not, or I was not able to get a motion on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that word table, and I thought, we really didn't table that thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that 5.2 in that section will move over to.
That should go over to no motion.
To the preceding table.
No, it's on remaining topics for discussion. 5.2 advisory. Oh, it is on that page too.
There were two different issues with 5.2.
Oh, there.
Oh, you're right. They are separate issues within the same section.
So,
So I think that the one on the remaining topics came from a citizen.
yeah, that was Greg that got up. and-
The one that was yours is the one that's reflected in the earlier table there, the first one.
I think they're backwards. My topic was the 5.2, and on remaining topics for discussion, I had brought up about how there could be a conflict of interest if
Okay.
if an employee was serving on a board in which they are providing guidance to essentially their
Okay.
boss.
So table showed up either in my notes or in the minutes somehow,
Yeah.
so.
So,
I'm
Maybe
admitting
we just got
I'm
it wrong.
admitting defeat on that one. I think it should probably be a no motion.
okay. Just out of curiosity, I mean, the example that would come to my mind is if a member of the planning commission is a staff member in the planning department. Is that what you were getting at?
That's
I'm not
exactly-
aware, has that ever happened?
No, and that was part of the reason why we weren't able to get a motion on, is that it's
Oh.
never been a problem.
I see.
But also, this is something that has only been available to city employees for the last 10 years, because it was just at the last Charter Review Committee that that hourly city employees became eligible to serve on citizens committees and commissions.
Oh.
So it never could have really been a problem before. So they opened it up. Now city employees can serve on commissions and committees, but there really isn't any safeguard that would prevent them from serving on a committee for the department in which they work. Now, common sense would
Yeah.
dictate that you would never put somebody
Yeah, the
on a
city would be
committee.
appointing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's up to the mayor and the council to make those appointments. And I can't imagine that they ever would, but it was just one of those things that, in reading through the charter, I thought I'd bring up.
Yeah,
Well,
I think if
frankly,
I,
that happens 100% of the time. They just don't have a vote, but they are the staff to the committee because they have
yeah,
the knowledge about the issues and they're working with them every day.
but I mean,
But they aren't voting. Yeah, they're not a voting member.
Per se.
yeah, to me, that's a conflict of interest, pure and simple, but anyway.
Interestingly enough, we actually had a planning commissioner hired by the City of Everett in January. She resigned as a commissioner.
Right.
And so, just by example, so it's
Yeah.
kind of the opposite of, the chicken and egg there, but-
And we did have a Parks Board member that was serving in another municipality's Parks Department as an employee. So that, she brought a wealth of experience in that advisory role. But I think if an employee were to serve on the committee and, but of course, obviously, it does create a conflict of interest, but.
Well, Michael, do you feel that he should go forward?
I don't think so, because I have enough trust, in good sense that the city council and the mayor would never have the judgment to make that type of an appointment, but I'm just saying it's something that could happen.
Yeah,
So you want to leave it to their discretion?
I would be in favor of leaving it to their discretion.
Under the comments or the outcomes, do you want to make some statement about maybe evaluating it again in 2026, or you don't feel passionate enough about it?
I don't feel passionate enough.
Okay.
It was one of those things that I just caught my eye as I was reading through the charter with the initial read-through and.
That long list you brought.
That long list I brought, and I knew that half of them would die out over time, but thought I would start with the master list of
so, no,
everything.
no report on yellow paper this
No,
time.
I will not be.
All right.
I will not be providing a counter
right.
to that one.
Okay, so I think where that leaves us, if we're agreed on the status of these issues so far, we do have on the last page, that one issue on 5.2 having been moved off. Apparently, we've got these additional items for discussion.
As Terry pointed out on 2.8D, and I had put under status there that it may be covered by the new section 15.10, so if you all agree that it is, then that can probably be removed as well.
Now, is that is that word tabled, is that proper usage based on what we've all
I
talked
don't
about?
think it was tabled. I think we just took it.
You do not think it was?
I
Yeah,
think we
okay.
fixed it with that other solution that addressed it in both sections.
Okay. So if we're not going to talk about that one anymore, does it disappear from the table, or do we leave it there for the record?
Goes on.
I was thinking it along with the last one, 5.2, moves to the table of items discussed.
And no, yeah, and no action.
And you could put a comment on the topics voted on that it, like put the sections that new one, this one addressed. You could put the comment there that says 2.8D and the other one were addressed there in the comments.
Right.
Okay, that takes us to the administrative, as I read that, it's senior staff members have to live in Everett. That was raised, I think, by Greg, wasn't it? Yeah. Who is not here tonight, but that's okay.
Can I make one point on that? Before if we were to bring that up again, I'd like to know the legal ramifications of that. Is that something that you even could impose on an appointed member of city
Personnel,
administration?
I think the chiefs are required to live in the city limits. Fire and police, I believe.
Do we know that?
Okay, rephrase the question, Reed.
I think Michael's question was, it's his understanding the police chief and the fire chief have to reside in the city as a condition of employment. Is that correct for those two, and are there any others?
Debbie's saying no.
As re-
One of our knowledgeable citizens is shaking her head.
Well, as it relates to Michael's question, the answer to that is no. There
Okay.
is no requirement that they live within the city limits.
And is there any other requirement on the books right now that somehow tie residency in the city to employment?
Except for elected officials, no. There is some awkward language for the chief administrative assistant that doesn't say yes or no. Other than that, it's silent.
Okay. So now maybe we can go to Michael's question to the two attorneys in the room. What are the legal ramifications, in your opinion, based on what you know, of putting a provision like that in a charter?
There are a limited number of people, arguably, who are employees that you could require by charter, or city code for that matter, to be employees and to not end up with a legal problem. Obviously, most city employees are members of bargaining units of one type or another, and for all of those people that are in bargaining units, that would be a mandatory subject of collective bargaining. So what you end up with is, of course, as Jim's already said, you have a mayor and certain elected officials that by statute obviously have to reside in the city. You have the vast majority of city employees who you cannot require to be residents because it's a matter of collective bargaining, and therefore there is a small group left, we'll call it an exempt group, that arguably you could require to reside within the city.
Yeah, I would concur. I think it comes down to some of your appointed, probably upper management folks you could legally, but then there are policy reasons why you may not wish to do that.
And would that include all at-will employees, or is there somewhere up the pecking order, senior management, where that could be done? Not that it,
I think clearly with department heads and that kind of, that classification you could, and I'm not sure, Tom, below that?
Everett's situation is complicated because I recall that virtually everybody in the city is hired through civil service. No?
No.
There's a group of,
Yeah, just appointed folks who are not.
right, there's a group of appointed folks who are not civil service. For those that are civil service, in addition to collective bargaining rights, adding that requirement might implicate what you're already doing under civil service as well. So I'm sorry, I don't have an organizational chart, and I certainly don't know what the employees within the city are, but there is a small group of, we can call them at-will employees. They're appointed employees, not under civil service, not under collective bargaining, that in those circumstances, you could probably require them to be city employees.
city
If that,
residents.
that's correct.
Okay, so that's as much legal background as I think we can muster. What do you all think?
Can we see if there's even a motion for this before we spend a lot of time discussing it? Because I have some opinions, but I don't know if we have a consensus to even, I mean, is there a motion to
I was just gonna ask the exact same thing, because this did come from a citizen's comment. I haven't heard anyone on our committee that has expressed an interest in pursuing this, so this may be a dead issue unless someone on this committee would like to further pursue it.
Is there a motion to put this item, and a second, to put this item up for discussion?
From a practical matter, it would seem that if the issue ever came up, the mayor and the city council would address it if it ever became an issue, that the police chief and the fire chief could not be present for a major incident, as they usually are. So they apparently do live close enough to get here when necessary. I assume it's not been a problem. So I don't see a need for a motion on it.
Okay? Because Reed's Rules of Order are that to even have the discussion you just had, we need a motion to get it on the floor. I'm not seeing a motion.
If that's the case, can I add another point? Because Michael makes it.
Didn't I just say, no, you can't, or?
Before you start, I have 6 points I'll make if you want to make a point.
You could make a motion to remove it from consideration.
No,
Oh.
no.
Motion to remove it from consideration.
No, is there a motion to
Then
put
you can
this item
discuss
on the
it.
table for discussion? No? I don't see a motion. So that'll move over to the the preceding table. Although, Terry, that's an excellent point, because what we're going to do as we move through these things, we'll describe the topic, and then we will ask for a motion and a second to even begin discussion on it, so.
I was just trying to save you from a,
From 6 points of.
from 6
yeah,
points of.
Of opposition. Okay.
However, I do live in the city, and I live and work here, so.
I would hope so if you're in this committee.
Yeah. I mean, I work for the port, and I live in the city.
Okay, so that's been moved over to the preceding table. There's another item on the list, 4.4, positions mentioned in 4.7 through 11 are not mentioned in 4.4.
I don't believe that's true.
Now, well, okay, that's a good point. You don't think it's true, let's discuss that.
Let's read 4.4. The appointee of officers of the city shall include the chief administrative assistant, if appointed, the city attorney, city clerk, the chief of police, the fire chief, and the department heads of all other departments established pursuant to this article and such other appointee of officers as are established by ordinance. Blah, blah, blah. So that covers all of the other department heads that are named farther down. They are mentioned, but just as a group, not individually.
I agree.
Okay. Now, in requesting a motion and a second, if you agree with Claire that it's kind of a non-issue, then we don't need a motion and a second. But if you'd like discussion, I need to hear a motion. Mark?
It's a little bit of minutia. The library director is not appointed by the mayor.
Ooh,
Pardon?
I know, yeah.
Well,
Does the charter say that?
what is not, except as otherwise noted.
Does it say it in the library section?
It's not mentioned in this section because it's in the library part.
Except as otherwise provided in this charter, all other, in this charter, excuse me. Okay, never mind.
So we're, yeah, but, well, okay. Would be a good informative addition, but, okay, I'm not seeing a motion there, so we will move on. Next one is 5.2, advisory boards.
We did that.
We just did
Covered in
that.
motion.
Okay, 14.2, consider including a limit, oh, this is Claire's.
So I'll move to recover this from the table or whatever it is.
No, you
Take
just
this
have-
from the table.
Seconded.
Yeah, you just have to move to approve it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to bring this on the table for discussion, for adoption. All those in favor, raise their right hand. One, two,
What-
14.2.
We're just moving to put it.
on the table for discussion.
On to for discussion.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Doesn't go.
which would mean 5 opposed, 14, right? So we got
Two noes.
It's It's in just a majority to bring it back
It's
on the
it's
ta-
just
yeah,
a
so-
majority to raise the issue. We don't need 10 votes for that. Okay, it's open for discussion. Claire?
In your handouts this evening, you have the two previous pieces that were developed to explain this issue. If I may briefly summarize, yes, the payment in lieu of tax that the city general fund gets from its in-house enterprise operations, utilities and others, has, I believe, historically remained at 6%. It was at 6% when I arrived here in 1976, and I believe it's still at 6% today. So you could suggest that there hasn't been a substantial increase, and therefore no reason to pull the fire alarm. But I will assert that the issue comes up frequently in budget discussions when there are challenges at making ends meet with, other tax limitation measures, numerous tax limitation measures that have already been imposed on the general fund's ability to generate revenues. And this is one area where revenues can be generated quietly should people get desperate enough. So that is why I am suggesting that it be, that the same limitation be imposed as that which is imposed by the state on the city in its taxing of other non-city utilities that operate with, under a franchise within the city. In limiting it to the maximum allowed by state law, which is, I believe, just over 6%. And except for the provision that could be increased by a vote of the citizens. Sorry, I stumbled around that a little bit.
No? I've listened and studied and tried to understand what's being said, and I think now I've sort of got it. Your point, and I'm going to say it rather inartfully, budget time rolls around, city council needs to balance its general fund budget. They don't have the revenues to do that, so they go and they raid that's the inartful part. They raid the utility accounts, and then for good reasons, I'm sure, surreptitiously increase the utility rates to the taxpayer in order to generate the revenue that then moves over to the general fund to balance the budget. Is that it?
Yeah, in essence. Because there isn't a public hearing required, other than, there's a public hearing for adopting a budget, but that includes everything from soup to nuts in the budget. This is just one other line item that's buried deep in there and probably doesn't actually appear in the very thin summary statements that now are the essence of a budget presentation. A budget presentation, in your day, there was a document this thick. Well, now it's just a very few pages. So I don't think the average person would ever be able to even notice that such a change had been made until they saw an increase in their utility rates, but they would assume, because there are increases in utility rates frequently, that it's part of the ongoing, program to upgrade the infrastructure in the city and such. I'm not concerned about the current rate. I'm not concerned about a modest increase. There are, however, other cities in the state where it's not 6 or 7%. It's 18, 20, 22, 24%. I don't think there's any 24% now, but at the time that I did my research, there was. And that, to me, is too darn high.
I guess, Claire, I would ask, is there other cities that have this restriction or this statement in?
I have never researched that
Okay,
question.
I didn't know if you knew of any other cities
There are
around.
cities that have that have no payment in lieu of tax, and there are cities that have very high. But the majority of them are in the same realm, wherever it is, around 6%.
Okay. But I mean, do other cities have a statement like this in their charter, or is there
I have
any?
never asked that
I
question.
mean, I didn't know if that was protocol that they have in other cities, or
I would
because there's
guess
concern.
the answer is no for the larger cities, because those are the ones with the higher tax rates. So the other charter cities. Or payment in lieu of tax rates, sorry, transfer rates.
Chris?
Claire, I have to leave in a minute to get to an event, so I apologize, but I wanted to provide my comment before I left. It's difficult for me to support this because I don't know what else would be on the table at the time that this issue may become in front of an elected official on a budget discussion. I do appreciate you bringing this up, though, because I think you raising this issue provides a chilling effect on this happening at some point, at least in the near future. And I think if there isn't enough votes for approval to take it to the vote or to recommend it to the city council, I do think that it shouldn't be included, obviously, inside of our report, so that way a same discussion occurs at the city council level at the very least. And I do appreciate you bringing it up.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Chris. Other comments?
I was just going to ask, I think you may have commented on this before, but to your knowledge, this has never occurred. It's never been above the state or the public tax. Is that correct?
As far as I can recall, I really wasn't much involved in the budget process for the first few years that I was here in the late 70s, but I became very heavily involved in the budget process by about 79 or 80. And in all that time, it's been at the same rate that it is today.
The excuse me, the utility levy.
The payment in lieu of tax.
The payment in lieu of
rate
tax.
That, it's a tax on the gross revenues. It's a payment based on the estimated gross revenues at the time of putting the budget together of the water, sewer, storm utility. It's been applied to transit, golf funds, some other, enterprise funds as well. And it's a lump sum, 12 equal parts transfer, monthly transfer from those money-making operations to the general fund.
Claire, did I understand you were putting forth this language to be included in the charter?
As an addition at the end of 14.2.
Right. So are you prepared to make a motion that it be included?
If the discussion's over, I'd be glad to make a motion to add the language that I've drafted at the end of 14.2.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend to the council a charter revision along the lines of the language that's been presented by Member Claire Olivers.
Just want to add some discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it was brought up before, but I just wanted to reiterate that I feel like, I've given this a lot of thought, especially coming from Claire, and I think that that there is incentives for the elected officials not to. I do believe it would be obscured by, not being a really obvious change, but I think there are plenty of watchdogs in the world to look out for this, and it hasn't been abused. And I really feel that, we need to give as much flexibility to leadership as we can. And that there's the initiative process, there is people having to run for election, and I feel like it's okay the way it is, although I do agree entirely with what Chris said before he left.
That it be communicated to council along with our report, but not in the form of a recommended charter amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Other discussion?
I think there was a lot of, I think there was a lot of attention brought to the utility rate increases that were much more transparent, but there was a lot of people that talked about that and still talk about the rate increases. So I think there would be an immediate reaction from people who are aware of it, and that the community would hear about it if it was really unreasonable.
Okay. Seeing no for Michael.
Just a question.
Yep.
Is there a point taking a vote today when we don't have 10 members present to advance this.
What are we,
item.
what are we down to?
Down to 9.
Oh, nine. You have 10 right
Oh, wait,
now.
10 right now. I guess I better learn that.
You might want to vote on it when there are more
Well.
people here to vote, just so that, because
Or to get a pulse.
I don't, you know.
Yeah,
Claire, I'm
not
sorry,
Yeah.
this is just really about transparency. Like, you're saying that there's flexibility in the system that exists, and potentially taxes could be changed and no one really knows what's happening unless you have the background to be able to dive into it.
I would agree with Chris that probably the most important thing that would come of this discussion, regardless of the outcome, is increased transparency, potentially. But secondarily, I'm suggesting a way to involve the citizens in making the decision to increase it substantially, if it were to be increased substantially.
I don't think we should depend on watch guards to determine whether there are any discrepancies or misrepresentations. I think we should be clear what we're recommending to the city council and let them make the decision whether the citizens should vote on it. So I suggest we push it forward.
Okay, I'll call for the question then.
okay, the question's been called. I would like to note as chair and whoever brought it up, as we know, to advance this to the council requires 10 votes. I know of at least one no vote, which means the motion will fail. I would like to offer the opportunity to defer until we have 11, 12, 13 members here. We're always going to have people missing, but we just happen to be right on the cusp here where we've got the 10 people here that. Now,
So,
I'll defer to your
So-
judgment, Claire.
but if we do take a vote and there's 5 people that are against it, then it's a moot point
Yeah.
anyway, right?
if there's not 10 people for it,
Yeah.
then it's a moot thing.
Well, I would like to continue and see what it looks like, and if there's 5 people against it, then we don't even have to bring it up again if
That's
it's.
true.
So,
And if it is defeated, then we go under the rules where member of the majority can ask that it be brought back
Yeah.
on the table later, okay? Okay, the motion's been called for. All those in favor to, positive motion, to recommend the charter amendment on to council, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's possible, there, 6? Okay. Okay, so, what?
You didn't see yourself.
I did. Well, no, I was leaving it to others to count. Okay, so the motion's defeated. It does not move forward, but after the public hearing, there will be an ability for somebody voting in the majority to deny, to bring it back up for consideration. Okay? All righty then. 15.9, does that involve a charter amendment?
Yes, and the reason it's there is because I couldn't find anywhere in the minutes or the notes that an actual vote had been taken on the issue of removing archaic language. So when Tim Benedict put this draft report together, he put language, because this is his baby, he put language into 15.9 to take care of that. So basically, I guess, what would be required for this to move forward as he's proposed is a motion and
Yep.
a vote.
So moved. Oh, Joe moved
I
and
moved,
Terry seconded. Okay, discussion on the motion? Okay, just so we're all, give me one example of an archaic
Heretofore,
heretofore.
putting it
Okay.
into modern English, all
Okay.
those kinds of words.
Heretofore, we will now vote on the okay, it's been moved and seconded to advance this recommended charter amendment to the city council. No further discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It appears to be, are we unanimous here? Okay, there we are, okay. Whatever the number is, we're unanimous, so, thank you. Okay, now, we've hit the end of that list. This is the opportunity to raise other issues that have not been discussed. Are there additional topics? Okay. If we go with the procedure that we discussed, the schedule, it means that if there's no further topics to discuss, then we are done until May the 12th. And during that time, I think that Bob and me and Megan and whoever else would love to join in the effort will begin using Tim's format that we discussed and start building the report in draft form, of course. And so that'll sort of be the work assignment while we're on hiatus. Is everybody agreed with that? I mean, if we adjourn the meeting now, we're done going through the topics, we've taken the votes, it means we don't meet again until May the 12th at public hearing.
My only concern is that votes are taken with a minimum quorum or a minimum amount of votes necessary for passage or defeat, and that everybody else doesn't have a chance to vote on these issues.
Well, the other members of the committee, the ones that are not here tonight or won't be here next week or weren't here 2 weeks ago, under the majority reconsideration rule, they'll be able to talk to one of the majority voters on the issue and ask them to bring it back on the table. After the public hearing, you're going to have a final report in front of you, and you again will have that opportunity. And if you have other comments on the report, the narrative or whatever, then that'll be the whole discussion we have on the 19th and the 26th as we round out the reports.
But votes can't be reheld unless the majority,
Somebody voted.
somebody
in
from the majority makes a motion for reconsideration.
correct.
And if it's a negative vote, from my position, I'm dependent on someone who disagrees with me to reconsider it. For example, the tribal issue that we talked about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a 9-4 vote, and it didn't pass because we didn't have 10 people voting for it. If
Right.
one more person had been there, or 2 people, whatever, I'm confident it would have passed.
Yep. Yeah, and just to telegraph my punches, at some point, when we have a full complement of people and we're into that process, that very item you raised, I'm going to ask to be reconsidered.
I
And
thought about it and seeing the paucity of attendees today, I thought not to bring it up.
Yeah, well, we'll all be doing our little lobbying here during that time, so. Yeah, Tom?
I'm a little unclear as to the report writing that's going to occur now, but I did want to reemphasize the Open Meeting Act issue that we have here. If there are 2 or 3 working on an item, that's okay because you don't have a quorum. But if you are drafting something, it's probably best at this point in time that it be only one-way communications to Bob or Jim or Reed, so that we don't end up with serial communications that become an Open Meeting Act violation.
Okay, yeah, well taken. Bob, maybe you and I will talk about who's going to be doing this.
So Tom, would you clarify, please, if Reed, for example, sends out a draft to us, are we not allowed to comment it as a group?
Correct.
Okay,
That has to happen here.
okay.
Yeah.
In this setting.
Now,
Gotcha.
he can write a comment, let's pick on me. Let's say I'm the one writing. It goes out. He can comment to me, you can comment to me, Terry can comment to me, but I can't respond to them, right? In writing, because then we get into the serial Open Meetings Act.
There can be one-way communication.
Right.
And Bob's supposed to be copied on any emails,
Right, yep,
so it keeps us straight.
fair enough.
So is Michael's question answered now?
It's-
Okay.
Well, I'm still unclear. So if I respond to Claire, I should just respond to him and not to all?
Right.
Okay.
And the way, regardless of who writes it, the way I envision the draft report, it's going to be track changes. And if you send me a comment, if I'm the guy, if you send me the comment, then you're going to see your comment either on the margins in a comment box, or you're going to see it in a track changes thing. And ultimately, when we can all meet in open meeting, that track changes copy will go to everyone, and we can go through and see what everybody had said. We just can't be doing that on a day-to-day basis, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
One, just a
Angie,
couple
yeah.
of minor details in the introduction. Second paragraph,
Of the draft.
yeah, of the draft, page 2. Second to last line, in accordance with section 3 of resolution 6926, is it 2 public hearings were held? Should be plural.
We've had one.
And the next one's the May one.
Okay.
Yep.
And on page 6, second to last paragraph needs a period to end the sentence. That was it. Page 6, second to last paragraph, workload, period.
End of discussion.
Minor deal, but
Good.
Okay, is there any other comment for the good of the order? I think because we are adjourning a half hour early this week, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? We'll see you May the 12th.
Appreciate the honor.
It'd be nice to be the first one, too. If they have a plaque where they keep putting people's names on it.
It's a nice honor. I don't mean to minimize that.
Yeah, no, because you've got this, and if you wanted to do it, maybe just, 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 if you wanted to do it, maybe